Hello, my name is Corlin Bryant, and I took this class just because it was on my ed plan, but I actually am excited to learn about everything. And the part I'm looking forward to is maybe learning about just other people's identity and how it affects them that maybe in ways like I didn't think about, besides just how my identity affects me. And one thing about me that I guess isn't really part of my identity, maybe, but I mean, it is a little bit, but I do play basketball here at Rio Hondo, so that might come up a bit when it comes to like talking about stuff that with my identity or just stuff in my life, because that is a pretty decent chunk of my life. And my three prompts, my first one is what am I aware of most on a daily basis? I chose this because as an African American, I think, you know, most African Americans probably think about that the most out of like most parts of our identity. And although it isn't like a huge issue or anything, but recently I was actually like pulled over when I was driving, and usually I'm not like overly like, oh, I'm African American, what if someone's racist? Like, I don't really think like that. But when I did get pulled over, I was like a little more like, okay, like let me make sure I'm like, extra careful, because you never know what happens. And you do see like certain things with police officers, and they might treat people differently. So sometimes even in ways to where like, oh, like I know African American, but I'm not trying to like think about it too much. Sometimes like unconsciously you can have that like to where it like pops up to where like, oh, I'm in a certain area around certain people, let me make sure I act a certain way or something like that. But that would probably be the one I am most aware of, even though I wouldn't say it's like a huge issue in my life. And one of the parts of my identity that gives me the most privilege is it's not part of like my, I guess, like identity is more of like a physical thing. It's more like, I'm a taller person, I guess, pretty tall, athletic, so it kind of gives me an advantage in certain things like sports. So maybe someone who wanted to play sports but's like 5'2", that's part of the identity. They have to live every day, being like that height, or being like a shorter person. They might, be seen differently by other people in relationships and stuff like that. So I think, being a taller person, it helps me like in sports, certain sports you can't be like 5'2", so being like 6'3", like it'll help, you can play certain sports, certain people see you different way, maybe like certain guys and certain friend groups that might be like treat you differently if you're smaller, or like try and belittle you, so stuff like that is to where like being, I guess, like a taller person, it actually does give you like an advantage in certain settings, but being shorter does too. And one part of my identity that might be like the most difficult to discuss, or at least was, not maybe so much anymore, was probably mental health, because my family does have like a lot of issues with mental health, and it's affected me like a little bit, but it's not anything like too overbearing. Like my mom is bipolar, and my brother has had depression and anxiety, and I've like had anxiety for most of my life and panic attacks. So before it's been like harder to talk about stuff like that, but over time I've become just more open with it, and I think that's like good. Like with stuff like that's been difficult to talk about, like over time it becomes easier once you kind of like understand it's part of your identity, and maybe it's something that you can't really control completely, but it can't help to even to just talk about it, But those are my three things that resonated with me most when it came to all the questions about identity. And once again, my name's Corlin, and nice to meet y'all.